After conquering the UFC without losing a single fight, Khabib Nurmagomedov did something even more unbelievable. He walked away. While millions expected him to chase bigger paydays, break more records, and become the richest fighter in the sport, the Eagle chose a completely different path. Today, despite building a fortune worth more than $45 million, he still lives by the same values that shaped him as a boy in the mountains of Dagestan. But those values weren't forged inside the Octagon. They were forged long before the UFC ever knew his name, during a childhood unlike any other, including wrestling a bear. Inside the cage, Khabib didn't just defeat opponents, he broke their will. One takedown at a time, he turned the Octagon into a prison of their own making. Across 29 professional fights, nobody solved the puzzle. He retired undefeated, leaving behind one of the most dominant careers combat sports has ever witnessed. If you enjoy deep dive sports documentaries like this, hit subscribe, and let's step inside the remarkable life of Khabib Nurmagomedov. When you look at his garage, it becomes a fascinating study in contrast, mirroring both his Dagestani roots and his ascent to global stardom. Each machine tells a different part of his journey. When he needs the raw utilitarian power, he turns to his Toyota Land Cruiser J200, a mud-caked, reliable workhorse that serves as a testament to his origins. As his global footprint expanded into Dubai, his garage evolved to reflect his success. The Ferrari California T, with its sleek, aerodynamic curves, stands as a symbol of his elite status, while the Mercedes-AMG GTS, with its snarling 515 horsepower V8, mirrors the aggressive, predatory speed he unleashed inside the Octagon. He maintains a refined presence with the Mercedes-AMG G63, a luxury SUV that blends power with commanding presence, and the understated elegance of the BMW 6 and 7 Series, which offer him comfort on his business travels. Even his classic Porsche 911 Carrera 4S hints at a taste for timeless precision. While his garage holds the keys to high-performance machines, the place he calls home represents a complete departure from the glitz of the global spotlight. Far removed from the neon lights of Las Vegas or the lavish skyline of Dubai, his primary sanctuary is tucked away in the serene, exclusive outskirts of Makhachev, Dagestan. This residence isn't a monument to vanity. It is a fortress built for recovery, privacy, and family. The interior is purposefully grounded, centering around a spacious family dining area designed to host massive gatherings, a dedicated playroom for his children, a private home gym, and a quiet prayer room for spiritual reflection. However, the gloss of his fame would be hollow without the bedrock of his father's teachings. Born September 20th, 1988, under the watchful eye of his father, Khabib's childhood looked nothing like that of an ordinary boy. The training, which famously included playful wrestling sessions with a young bear, wasn't a publicity stunt. It reflected the harsh realities of life in the mountains of Dagestan, where resilience was considered a way of life. Every run through the hills, every wrestling session, and every lesson from his father was shaping a champion long before the world knew his name. By the time he stepped into the UFC, he was carrying the weight of an entire nation. His ascent was historic. The first Russian and the first Muslim UFC champion, a man who transformed grappling into an art form. His journey eventually transcended sport and entered the halls of power. His high-profile relationship with Vladimir Putin underscored his status as a national icon. No moment was more explosive than his rivalry with Conor McGregor. For months, the rivalry spilled beyond press conferences and into deeply personal territory. By the time UFC 229 arrived, millions weren't simply watching a lightweight title fight. They were witnessing one of the most emotionally charged events in UFC history. It was a societal earthquake where the technical brilliance of Sambo was finally unleashed on the grandest stage of them all. This victory moved him beyond mere prospect status into the rare air of the combat sports GOAT. When analysts search for his ceiling, they find themselves debating him alongside the true titans of MMA history: Georges St-Pierre, John Jones, Anderson Silva, and Demetrius Johnson. Khabib existed in a lethal middle ground. He possessed the suffocating pressure of a world-class wrestler, but he paired it with the relentless, clinical top pressure that made him feel inevitable. He didn't just imitate the greats. He refined a blueprint for what it means to be a dominant athlete. A staggering statistic remains the hallmark of his perfection. Across his entire UFC career, he lost only 2 rounds on the judges' scorecards. In an era where controversy often generated bigger paychecks than championships, Khabib built his legacy differently. He rarely chased attention, avoided unnecessary drama, and allowed discipline, not headlines, to become his greatest marketing tool. That explains why millions respect him. But the greatest decision of his life wasn't inside the Octagon. Many believe Khabib was entering the greatest years of his career. Super fights with Georges St-Pierre were being discussed. Others imagined him reaching 30-0 or even 35-0. But Khabib already knew something the rest of the world didn't. He reached his apex at UFC 254, delivering a clinical submission of Justin Gaethje. That night, he laid his gloves down in the center of the Octagon, a promise made to his mother that he would not fight without his father, Abdulmanap, by his side. It was a career-ending performance that cemented his status as the consensus #1 pound-for-pound fighter. 29 fights, 29 victories. Few athletes in combat sports have ever walked away with a record that untouched. His strategic growth shifted into a higher gear post-retirement. Transitioning from the cage to the coach's chair, Khabib became a mentor, guiding teammates like Islam Makhachev to the top of the sport. His business acumen proved as sharp as his takedowns. He owns the Eagle Fighting Championship, EFC, has developed his own nutrition lines, and operates multiple gyms worldwide. Ironically, the richest man Khabib ever became wasn't the one who earned millions in the UFC. It was the man who walked away from them. Yet, beyond the trappings of wealth and the intensity of the Octagon is a foundation built on absolute faith and loyalty. Khabib has always maintained a fiercely private personal life. He married his childhood friend, Patamat, in 2013, and the two share 3 children. He consistently shields them from the public gaze. Even after earning millions, the habits that built him never changed, proving that greatness isn't something you switch on for fight night. It's something you practice every single day. As he focuses on coaching, the question is no longer if he will return a fight, but how he will continue to shape the sport from the sidelines. The world watches his corner with bated breath, waiting to see if the Eagle can mold the next generation of giants. Whether it's in the quiet of a mountain gym or the roar of a stadium in Abu Dhabi, the next chapter of Khabib Nurmagomedov is about more than just legacy. It's about immortality. Decades from now, new champions will come and new records will be broken. But very few athletes will ever leave the sport the way Khabib Nurmagomedov did. Undefeated, uncompromised, and completely at peace with his decision. Because legends aren't remembered for everything they acquired. They're remembered for the values they refused to sacrifice. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more in-depth stories on the world's greatest fighters, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.